This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Boy, do we got a lot to talk about on this week's broadcast. Wow, the rivalry between Michigan and Michigan State has hit maybe an all-time low. The Lions, they can always go lower, but we can always talk about what the hell went on with the Detroit Lions in a collapse defensively and offensively against the Miami Dolphins. It was a busy week for all things Detroit sports. Maybe we'll peek at a little bit of the Wings. I got to get Adam's early assessment, maybe get a brief update regarding what he thinks of the Red Wings, especially after they got shellacked against Buffalo, leaving Nedeljkovic out to dry, giving up 8 goals. There's a lot of things going on. Busy times. But as always, my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski, is here to break it all down. We got a lot to get to this week, cuz. You ready? You amped?
Yeah, man. Real busy week. I mean, started, I guess, Saturday night, and then just kind of continued. I mean, we're recording this a little bit early this week, but there's a ton going on, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop. So we had a show put together. We had to scrap that show. And we had to put some other stuff in here because it's been crazy busy. Lions, you want to start there?
Absolutely. The blessing of recording is sometimes you have the opportunity to make sure the show is the best that it can be. But lately, the news cycle has fallen right at the right time for us to break down the news of the day. And boy, man, I don't think you and I were really thinking that the Lions were going to make a lot of trade deadline moves just based on their salary cap, what's going on. It's kind of a team that's who would want anybody from the Detroit Lions? So obviously we kind of de-emphasized that, which is kind of interesting for us in that we said, hey, buy or sell, maybe, but we kind of de-emphasized it just based on all the shit going on with the coaching staff, the losses piling up, but they made a trade. They moved on from a former first rounder. I can't wait to get your reaction to the Lions have moved on from TJ Hockenson, and I think the biggest factor that has pissed off a lot of fans online is, why would Brad Holmes trade an asset? A considered asset by some supporters, others may disagree. Why would Brad Holmes trade TJ Hockenson to a division rival in the Minnesota Vikings? So it's a really an interesting look at how the Lions are rebuilding. But to me, it's not a surprise. We ranked him in the 5 trade targets that could be moved on because of the fact that when he doesn't get the long-term deal, by the time a player gets to year 4, year 5, yeah, you can exercise the 5th-year option, but when you don't get the long-term deal, people start to wonder, is the organization committed? And if you check out All Lions and Detroit Sports Podcast, Brad Holmes did not draft TJ Hockenson. We put out an article and said, hey, should supporters of the Lions trust the players that are remaining on this roster that were brought in from Bob Quinn? And it's starting to look like, with how they're using DeAndre Swift, how they thought about TJ Hockenson, maybe it's time to start moving on and really focusing in on the players that Brad Holmes brought. But Hockenson, you start shuffling picks around, you basically get 2 picks. You don't get a first, but you get a second, and it positions the Lions on the pro side to have a lot of picks in this upcoming teardown rebuild.
Yeah, so I was really excited when this first was announced. And as always, when the reports come out on, there was a player traded, there was some movement, things aren't ever really put in the correct order. Everybody just kind of like regurgitates, just kind of throws stuff out there like, this is what we're hearing. And I was like, all right, cool. Lions got 4 picks for Hockenson, or a possible 4 picks for Hockenson. I was like, this is great. I never wanted TJ Hockenson. I always thought it was a stupid draft pick to draft him 8th overall. I was at when I used to work for the radio station, I was at the draft party, and I was on the verge of running around naked if they were able to draft Josh Allen, the linebacker. Didn't happen. Ends up with TJ Hockenson. I was pretty pissed. I was pretty upset. I ended up going on to get quite hammered. It was a good time. But Hockenson's a guy who wants big money. He's a guy who sees himself as a Travis Kelce, as a Kittle. I don't see that at all. I think this week's game against Miami was a prime example. TJ Hockenson got hit with a pass wide open. He ends up stretching it for, I think, 44 yards. And then he gets hauled down from behind. The guy has average hands. He has average speed, average-ish. He's average at blocking. He's pretty much average at just about everything. Like there's nothing elite about him. He has trouble getting separation from guys. I don't think TJ Hockenson has ever really panned out to be the guy that he was supposed to be. So TJ Hockenson, after year 5, wants a big money deal like Kelsey and like Kittle. And the Lions were just like, look, we're not going to do business that way. We're not doing that. So I was initially really excited about this trade. And then as things kind of get hashed over and you kind of see the bottom line of what actually went on, I don't necessarily understand this trade. I don't understand what the Detroit Lions are doing. Look, I just went through and I basically told you how TJ Hawkinson's very average at being a tight end. But what I will tell you is I'd much rather have a player who is average at his position. So when you bring in your quarterback, because what it looks like now is we are going to be drafting a quarterback this year. When you bring in your quarterback, it's good to have that safety valve, whether he's average or not. He's a veteran in this league. He's a guy who is liked by his teammates. He's a guy who gets it. So I'll keep the average guy who gets it on his rookie contract to help bring along my brand new rookie quarterback. Instead, you end up trading Hockenson. You have to throw in an additional third-round pick from this year, and you have to add an additional conditional fourth-round pick, which may turn into a fifth-round pick, in order to get a second this year and a third next year. To me, it's just a lot of swapping of picks with Minnesota again, and you end up hurting your roster. For as average as TJ Hockenson is, put this into perspective. This is where you're at with your roster. For as average as TJ Hockenson is, he is arguably the third best player on this roster, at least on the offensive side of the ball. The guy made a Pro Bowl. So the average tight end, yeah, you were able to spin it, get a couple of day 2 picks coming up this year and the following year, but you also had to give up a day 2 pick and possibly a day 3 pick when you sent him on his way. So what did you really get? Was this really a great trade? Because I don't think it was.
You moved up off 70 to 80 spots. You moved up. And here's the deal. You also have to look at
in the second round, which, mind you, Brad Holmes blows in the second round so far.
That's the
he
part.
Hasn't done shit in the second round.
That's the part to be nervous about. But I look at it and I say that we can't overvalue. Like you said, they were not going to invest in him. He wants $15 million a year. So
and he totally doesn't deserve that.
He's not going to get that.
Dude is super average.
Exactly. So they want to move on. They don't want a guy that's going to be negative. And they drafted a tight end, which always should signal what really a team's intention is. So you look at it and you say, for what they were able to get for him, it's fine. It's just a meh move. You look at, for me, how I look at it, I'm curious in terms of what message does this trade signal now to the veterans in the locker room. It's 1-6. We just heard, from a lot of players that say, man, this is exhausting. We're tired of losing. It's just really down. It's a down environment. Does this signal to you that ownership, after we heard Sheila Hamp talk to the media, does it signal to you that the Lions have maybe 3 to 4 years to actually rebuild, and they're just going to say, we don't care, we've taken the heat before, Doc and Jock have been screaming for 500 episodes about how bad we are, we're just going to follow our plan, and whoever thinks about it, let them speak, but we're going to tear it down and build it up through the draft. But a wrinkle has been thrown. A former player chimed in with an opinion that should be weighed in here, and I can't wait to share it, but I'm curious. Are you okay with the Lions basically saying, look, we're not winning, but we're really tanking?
I don't know if I'm okay with it. What I think I have a lot of concern and a lot of worry about, let me start here. I'm not so much upset that they're tanking and that this rebuild is going to continue for another year. I'm not so upset about that. I think you and I both agree that this thing had to be actually burned all the way to the ground before it could ever really get better. But I think that you needed to do that last year. I think you hurt yourself doing it year by year. We're now 2 years into the Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes regime. And what do we have to show for it? We've got 4 wins and we've got a tie. That's really the only thing positive that you've got to show for it. I haven't seen enough growth from any of these players to really signal like, hey, these guys are actually doing something. They're laying the foundation. They're building the groundwork for it. This was the big concern going into this season. What happened last year at the end of it was really encouraging because it was tough in the beginning of the year. They got a couple wins late, and it really seemed like things were going. Then you had everything that went on with HBO and Hard Knocks, and it was like, all right, cool, going to build on that momentum. Everything's good. Well, with that came increased expectations. Right now, you're hearing guys from the locker room coming out being like, it's really down. It's really this. It's really that. It sounds like that locker room is turning. It's no longer a positive place. This place is headed to those dark doldrums that we've seen with coaches like Jim Schwartz, Jim Caldwell, Matt Patricia. Like we've already been there. We've already done that. So what this trade of TJ Hockenson signals to me is they're hitting the rebuild button on the rebuild that they started last year. Like, how do you get to go through 2 rebuilds basically a year apart? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And what it says after taking that and lining that up with Sheila's comments from earlier last week, or maybe it was earlier this week. I don't know. All my weeks start to blur together because we just live in a fucking week of suckitude. It's like perpetual suckitude. Every month it just sucks. So what that tells me is these guys aren't going anywhere. Dan Campbell's not going anywhere. Brad Holmes isn't going anywhere. Get prepared for at least another 2 years of these guys running this organization. Sheila Hamp has signed on for the long term with these guys. But it's not like Campbell's not on the hot seat next year. No, you can go into another year where he's going to Holmes is going to draft a rookie quarterback, right? And Campbell can screw it all up, and he's still going to be here for another year after that.
See, it's a couple of different things that we got to parse out. I always thought the plan was going to be to move on from Hockenson because it signaled once a guy doesn't have a contract, you know he's gone. I don't think. Right. I do believe that they thought they would not be 1-6, but they don't really care because but that's the point. That's what I'm in lockstep with you. Hockenson was gone either way. He's gone. Okay, they weren't bringing him back. They weren't going to re-sign him. I thought maybe they would let the 5th year run out and then they'd get their compensatory draft pick, that 3rd rounder. Okay. That's what I thought was going to happen. But what is scary is this team had a vision for this team going into the year. And 1-6 wasn't part of that vision, or 1-5 wasn't part of that vision. No. This has gone completely awry. The train is completely off the tracks right now. And exactly. And I think this is a bit of a reactionary move to the season basically going up in flames right before our eyes. It's a move that they are. Remember, Sheila said we're going to draft players. This is what they're doing. They're going to do this. It's not really too much to me of a surprise that that's the plan. The other issue that is brought up is not really if they're tanking or not, because you always knew this kind of move was going to happen. What it signals is when you look at the in-game situation with how Dan Campbell and his coaching staff operate the players, I don't have confidence that. You got to remember, guys, the next question you got to ask is, okay, great, you're going to now fill this roster filled with young players. Well, what are we seeing the past 2 years? We've seen a bunch of young players, and they're not being coached well. So I do believe Dan Campbell was going to get 3 years no matter what. I know it's hard to imagine because you and I would fire him today if we could. We'd just walk in there and be like, Dan, this isn't working. Bye. We know already. You and I have already, and a lot of the fans have jumped to the conclusive stage. The Lions, they don't care. They're like, we are still in this phase where we believe that this is going to work. Okay, fine. Well, I'm telling you, by episode 560, we'll be back here telling you, see, we told you it wasn't going to work. But what the Lions have done is they gave Dan Campbell 6 years. Why 6? Because he knew he was going to get at least into year 3 no matter what, because they believe continuity matters. Well, you've already fired some of your coaches already, so we got to move on from this continuity nonsense. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying they're following their plan, which is bring on a bunch of young players and a young quarterback, and let's see what happens. So you and I are in lockstep in that we believe, okay, based on what Dan Campbell's doing, he is not the guy to put together quality game plans and get young players to execute. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Aleem McNeil, You have Jeff Okuda's playing well. You have Aiden Hutchinson. What do you think that the Detroit Lions are going to be the first team to draft 7 players and they're all going to hit? They're going to bring in 9 free agents and they're all going to stay healthy and play? Taylor Decker is just going to say, you know what, I love this and just want to stay here. Dude, 2 or 3 players are going to be gone. You're going to continuously rebuild. And so it's fair for us to look at what's going on now and saying my confidence that this is going to work is very low. You're going to have a very young team, guys. And you're going to trust that Dan Campbell is going to be the guy that is going to take care of these young players and manage them? No. So that's...
here's a question. What has he shown any of us that
nothing.
He has the ability to do this? And look, here's the thing. I loved Dan Campbell when he was brought here. I was on the Dan Campbell train. I was like, you know what? I think it's great. We got a professional wrestler as a head coach. This guy seems like he gets it. The guys want to play for him. He's hired a staff of all players who can connect with the players. And as long as they can draw some stuff up, this should work.
Nope.
It should work.
No.
I wanted it to work. We're now heading into what? Week 8? Bro, I'm so checked out on this entire team.
It's bad.
Because he hasn't shown anything. Like,
right.
Let me put it to you like this. There is a guy who I absolutely hated and did not want on this roster, and I panned him. I panned him for 2.5 years. This year I had to come around, all right? And I said, Jeff Okuda's a pretty damn good player. Jeff Okuda has been the one player on this team that has taken steps forward. What did they do earlier this week? They fired his coach.
Yeah,
they fired his position coach. Like, what? John, what the fuck are we doing here?
Right, what are we doing?
What is really going on here? The one guy that you can point to and say, look, there is a modicum of success that this guy has shown. There is some development and there is some growth. You're going to blow his position coach out?
Yeah, right.
Just a scapegoat his ass. Your defense sucks. Why don't you look at your defensive coordinator? He sucks.
Well...
what the fuck are we doing, man?
It makes
and I'm sorry to use the F word because we only use it when we really mean it because it's just the way to be. But like, man, that's where I'm at right now. Like, what
Fucking
are we
lines.
actually doing here?
Right. It makes no sense. But because, I mean, the defensive backs were lining up off sides. They were not prepared. And Dan Campbell, really, in my mind, I think that game against the Dolphins really highlighted a problem that has been emerging among the coaching staff. When your coach come out and says we had a game plan, which was told to us by Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell, this is what we're doing, and it is nowhere followed, there's a big problem. So Aubrey Pleasant had to fall on the sword. I mean, come on. There's a viral picture out there with a defensive back lining up offside. That's a big problem.
Wario lined up freaking 6 yards past the line of scrimmage. I get it. Look, I totally understand.
That's bad.
It's horrible. It's a horrible look. I get it. But is that on the player or is that on the coach?
It's on the coach.
I mean, I would put that on the player. You need to be smarter.
Nope, on the coach.
I've played football. You know where to line up. You can turn to the referee and say, hey, am I good? Before the ball is snapped, you can line up and say, hey, am I good? You can ask, and they'll tell you yes or no. Like, that's the thing. You can watch this week when you watch the game, all right? Or if you watch Red Zone, whatever you're doing this week, when you're watching football, you'll see there'll be a wide receiver that'll walk up to the line. He'll look at the referee and say, am I good? And the referee will give him a nod and say yes.
Yeah.
Or he'll move his hand and tell him to scoot back so he's not on the line of scrimmage. Like, you can ask. It's okay. That's on Oruwariye. That's not on Aubrey Pleasant. That's not on him.
Well, the onus was to be physical, and so for some reason, it wasn't communicated down to the players because they weren't doing it.
But let me ask you this. Okay? You've got Tyreek Hill, arguably the fastest guy in the NFL, right? And you've got Jalen Waddle, a young up-and-coming, soon-to-be elite wide receiver. You've got a cornerback in Jeff Okuda, who is a little bit more than a year removed from blowing out his Achilles, and I think we all can agree his speed has declined a little bit because of that. You also have Oruwariye, who, honestly, at this point, I just think he shows up to the games high. I'm not 100% sure where his head's at half the time. You want these guys up in the line of scrimmage, pressing them, so Jeff Okuda can then get beat 10 yards down the field instead of 5 yards down the field. If anything, I think you need to allow for a cushion when you're playing against these guys who are absolute speedsters on the outside. Like, it doesn't make sense to me to jam them at the line. Well, why would you jam them at the line? They're incredibly fast.
What
play with a little bit of a cushion and allow yourself a little bit of a buffer there. Do you realize Tyreek Hill multiple times in this game was 5 yards past whoever the cornerback was that was covering him, like just wide open. And there were times where Tua completely underthrew him, and Tyreek Hill, 5 yards past whatever cornerback was covering him, had to then come back 7 yards and get the ball 2 yards in front of whoever that cornerback was.
Because you got to look at it like they were told to do it because you want to disrupt them. Because if you give them the 5 yard cushion, they are so fast, it's like allowing them to go from second gear to third gear for free. They wanted to disrupt it so that the timing would be off because of the fact that he gets the ball out so fast. So you give him a little push.
Well, you know what you do then? Then you bring safeties over the top and you help bracket them. That's what you do. It's not like we haven't seen that type of coverage done here before. Calvin Johnson had that shit done to him all the damn time. And you know what? Calvin Johnson wasn't like he was a gazelle out there. He was pretty fast, but he wasn't Tyreek Hill fast.
But that's here nor there. The issue was coaches from the top, the bosses said do this, and for whatever reason, it wasn't executed because you never hear a coach say, we had a game plan and they didn't do it right. They never say that. They just say, well, you need to execute better. We needed to do this. He said we didn't follow the game plan well enough. And in essence, it's been a problem. The defensive backs, maybe they will do better now with a different voice. I agree with you. It does have the feel of a scapegoat because Aubrey Pleasant can sit back and say, look, dude, you gave me A.J. Parker to put on Jalen Waddle. And what's going to happen? Waddle's going to waddle his ass in the end zone and have a dance party over A.J. Parker, who then gets hurt like he always does and leaves the game. So it's here nor there. To be honest, Aubrey Pleasant got a get out of jail free card. When I saw that news break, I said to myself, you know what? This coach probably is going to be the luckiest dude ever if he gets on with the Saints or he gets on with another organization, goes back to the Rams, whoever he comes with, probably will have an opportunity to continue his career and develop, because just here in Detroit, it just doesn't work for whatever reason. I don't feel he was scapegoated. I feel it was justified. The defensive back, sometimes somebody has to fall on the sword for the play to get people's attention, and in this case, it's the position coach. I'm curious to see how they respond. Does Amani Oruwariye come back and put together a quality performance? Does the transition to Jerry Jacobs allow for some better play? Does the communication, even though Dan Campbell said it in an interview, he said, look, if we get beat, we're not in space, or we don't get the 50-50 ball, that's fine. But I'm not going to tolerate where there's miscommunications and so many mental errors on defense. He's just not. And that's the case. The funny part was, I think everybody that heard him say it's a production-based business just immediately disregarded Aubrey Pleasant and said, fine, fire yourself because you only got 4 wins in 24 tries. So I'm curious because you had a chance to watch quality football as well. You said to yourself, I need a little break from these Lions. I'm going to take in the Panthers and the Falcons. And when I saw that you took that in, I said to myself, my God, you saw a great ending and a complete knucklehead play that resulted in one of the wildest endings you're going to see in a football game. And I'm curious, you took in a different football game and it allowed you to formulate some opinions of these Lions. Where do you stand after checking in some football with a coach that actually has the tools to do things that are going to be successful?
Yeah, and look, most Sundays I watch a ton of football, just like you. But I really honed into this game, the Panthers and the Falcons game, and it's just alarming to me. And I think it's a little bit sad here because you've got two teams that are obviously going through it, right? They're going through this process of a rebuild. Falcons have a brand new head coach in Arthur Smith. They've got a bridge quarterback in Marcus Mariota who is out there making plays. They're down their number one running back who is actually a wide receiver converted to a running back in Cordero Patterson. They really don't have any wide receivers that they utilize. Like Drake London's there, but he's stuck in a box with mothballs. It is essentially a team that is going to run the football at you all day long. There's nothing really fancy about them. This is what it is. Conversely, you've got the Panthers, who just traded away the face of their organization. They are now on their third string quarterback. And this is a team that is basically rolling in different guys to play running back and basically suit up. And this was a hell of a football game. This was an incredible football. Both these teams went out there and fought their asses off. There was zero give. DJ Moore, with 12 seconds left, streaks down the field, catches a pass from a third-string quarterback. catches a touchdown. Then he acts the boner play, takes his helmet off, has a penalty. Next thing you know, it's no longer an extra point. It's now like a 45-yard field goal for 1 point that gets blocked. And next thing you know, we're going to overtime. But my point of it is you've got two teams. One that is in the first year of a rebuild, and they look really freaking good. You have another team who just came off a win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all right, and was in this game, fighting in this game all the way to the very, very end. In the Panthers, they fired their head coach. They're on their third string quarterback. They let go of the face of the franchise. Both these teams are complete messes when you look at them on paper. Your Detroit Lions should be in a better position than both of these teams, yet they are not. And whether you point to that as coaching, or you point to that as mismanagement from the top, or whether it could be any number of things, I will tell you this much. I think Jared Goff's a better quarterback than either one of these teams have. All right. I think the running backs that the Lions have are better than any running backs that either one of these teams have. I think the wide receiving core is better than any of the wide receiving core that either one of these teams have. I think defensively, I think the Lions have a few more pieces than both of these teams. Both these teams are freaking messes, yet these guys are going out and they're winning football games. Something your Detroit Lions can't do. I think it really calls into question. Like, go watch a different game, just any other game. Go watch a team that is absolutely struggling this year, and just watch how they play, watch how they perform. I think it has to call into question what is going on with the coaching staff on this team, whether it's Dan Campbell, whether it's his coordinators, maybe even some of the position coaches. I don't think Aubrey Pleasant should have been blown out. I really do believe that the defensive coordinator probably should have been the guy who was gone. Neither here nor there. It's not where we're at right now. We live in reality, and reality says that Aubrey Pleasant has to be the scapegoat. That's the case. I also live in reality when I watch the Panthers and the Falcons play, and these teams are light years ahead of where your Detroit Lions are. And I think that's probably the most alarming, the saddest thing, and probably the most damning thing you can say about an organization that is now hitting the reset button for the rebuild for the second time in less than 2 years.
Yeah, because as you were talking, well-executed points, man, real good stuff. I was just thinking, man, yeah, Geno Smith with the Seahawks, 5-3. Why? Quality coaching. They have good talent. They have good coaching, good systems. You moved on from Russell Wilson to go to Geno Smith. And
bro, you drop the face of your defense in Bobby Wagner. Yeah. You let him walk. And they're still making plays and getting stops.
What would the record be if Dan Campbell was coaching the Seahawks? It'd be 2-6, not 5-3. And if you had Pete Carroll here in Detroit, what would the record be? No doubt about it, be 4-2 or 3-3. I truly believe it. And so that's why, the Lions, it's a messy situation and you have angry people because yeah, you can try and sell to people, be patient, but we're now formulating judgments when it's 4th and 2 and your quarterback is free to throw a 30-yard bomb into the end zone.
Bro, don't even get me started on that play call.
Fucking retarded. It's unacceptable at the highest level when you score 27 points and the opponent has an adjustment and your first drive on offense is 3 penalties. What does that mean? And so I got justified. I mean, all I'm going to say is, guys, you can hate me when I ask these questions, but I know what a good coached team looks like. And last October, you can hate me, you can hate on Adam, you can call me out anytime you disagree, but last October, it was near the beginning of the month, I had sat there in the press box and watched the Lions take penalty after penalty, take procedural calls, not look organized, and I said, guys, this football team does not look well coached. And you guys ripped me a new asshole, said that I was invalidated to do what I do, called me every name in the book, forced me to defend myself saying, you guys think that lining up improperly, all these penalties, all these undisciplined plays, this is the sign of a team that's coached well? Okay, fine. I'll sit back and I'll chamber those thoughts that this is a well-coached team, and I'll just continue to say that I think the coaching at any level needs to be exceptional to get over the hump. That's how razor-thin the margins are. And you now this week come up against the Dolphins, and in the second half, you have 3 procedural penalties in a short period of time along your offensive line. they're not paying attention in meetings. They're not paying attention well enough in these practices. It is embarrassing. It is wrong. It's not well coached. When you have a defensive staff that has issues and you fire somebody, something's wrong in communication. When you target that, oh my God, I want these guys to press and they're not pressing, and you notice it and it still happens, that's what I asked Dan Campbell point blank. You come out and you tell us we had a game plan, they didn't follow it. So I set up the first question. I said, was there a chance to correct what you saw in the game? He says yes. He gives me that look like because he thinks he knows what's the next question is going to be. And I said, okay, if you saw something was going down that you didn't like, why wasn't it fixed? Why was the player that did the things that you didn't like not taken out? Why did that happen? Well, obviously he said, well, this is why I'm talking to you. You're saying that a player making mistakes cannot have anything change throughout the course of a game? Your decision is to fire somebody? I looked at that and said, I know you gave me the stare and you weren't happy, but I had to ask that question because if you tell us something was supposed to happen, it doesn't, and you can't get it corrected, there is a coaching issue. So he has to get better. I truly believe he had a good game plan. I think jamming the receivers is a good idea, but you have to kind of have a couple more beats and have some of these guys pressure a little bit to throw Tua off. So I am looking at what's going on with the Lions, and I'm saying you have probably a good GM that can target probably over 50% success in the players he's going to bring in. But you have a coaching staff that is full of young coaches that are trying to figure this shit out. And at this level, you'll get exposed, bro. Dude, Mike McDaniel exposed you. A new head coach exposed you. He went in, you saw that video, he saw his guys jump off sides, he looks at his coach and he's like, bro, get that shit fixed. Now, boom, Tua throwing the ball, getting it out quickly, running the ball with Mostert, doing everything that you needed to happen. And you saw the difference between the Dolphins and the Lions. The Dolphins' defense is atrocious, but when they needed to clamp down, light switch went on, they clamped down, and the Lions self-destructed. They have two great wide receivers. Who got the ball? Two great wide receivers. They threw it deep. So I'm just disappointed heavily that the coaching staff is not at the level it will need to be to compete. They have to get better. And the organization believes that getting better talent will make Dan Campbell look better. I don't know if you're going to go with a rookie quarterback. Heaven help us. It's going to be a lot of losses for the next 2 years. I'm curious to see how the fan base responds. Do they just stop coming? Do they start chanting? Do they start calling for the head of Dan Campbell?
I mean, does it go back to when Matt Millen was in charge and everybody shows up with a bag on their head?
I saw the kid with the Halloween, so we'll see what happens. But it does see, what sucks is, obviously, we've turned now our attention to the draft a little bit. We got mock drafts. We got that talk on All Lions and things like that. But it just kind of makes the game this weekend feel like pointless. You know what I mean? It just feels pointless to talk to the players. But I do feel, though, that, when people said, hey, what do you think about the Lions going up against the Packers? I said, I don't really know. They could play well. The Packers suck. But here's the thing. And I fall into that trap too.
And look, I think that's what's so frustrating about this season.
Our team sucks. Our team sucks. So we can't predict that the Lions are going to play well because it literally could be two teams that just give each other the game.
No, exactly. And I think that if you look at the season and you could take the game against Miami and I think there's a couple things that you can kind of extrapolate out of there that makes this season so incredibly frustrating. One, you brought up the 4th and 2 play, right? This is a team who is going in and driving, and all they need to do, they score a touchdown, this game's done. They win the game. It's 4th and 2. You draw up a play where you're going to throw a bomb down the field to Josh Reynolds, who's arguably not even close to being your best wide receiver. Go with a higher quality play, a bubble screen. Do anything into the flats. TJ Hockenson was getting a little bit loose. He had a pretty good day against Miami on Sunday. Hit him with a pass. Draw up a better quality play. Why are you throwing it deep and trying to go boom when all you need is 2 yards to keep the play rolling? Made absolutely no sense. That shows bad coaching and bad play calling and bad design. That's on your coaching staff. That's not on your players. It's on your coaching staff. And then you look at bigger picture. Green Bay sucks this year. Green Bay is a complete and utter mess. The Chicago Bears have waved the white flag. They traded their best defensive players. Chicago sucks. This year was a year for you to basically go for it, to have a chance to not just win a division, but at least get into the playoffs. Like, you've played Minnesota. And me and you both believe they should have won that Minnesota game. But again, bad coaching cost them that game. Bad coaching cost them that game. You should be running away with this division, yet your coaching staff keeps cutting the Achilles tendon out of this team and leaving them hamstrung and leaving them left to die somewhere on the 49-yard line. Every single week, it's something. And you're right. Can the Lions take advantage of Green Bay? I don't freaking know. No. Green Bay sucks. But you know what? The Lions suck even more.
Yeah.
So, like, when I watch this game, it's going to basically be a blowjob fest. It's going to be like watching awful porn.
Yeah. It's
going
to be a get-right game for Aaron Rodgers. It'll be competitive. Probably a 4-point loss again for the Lions. It'll be close, but it won't produce anything tangible. I mean, look what's happening. The Lions are putting DeAndre Swift on a pitch count. They're like, we gave him far too many carries. Why the fuck are you putting him out on the field then? I truly thought. I mean,
like, if he's not healthy, you should have put him on IR.
Yeah.
Like, give him 4 weeks off. It'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. I thought they were
already gone down the damn drain.
I thought they were protecting him to trade him. I honestly thought, you know what?
I thought so too.
I thought they were like, wait a minute. He comes out in an interview and says that, we gave him far too many carries. We got to baby him a little bit. What the hell are you talking about? If he's healthy and fully participating, what's going on here? But I'm losing a little bit of trust in DeAndre Swift in what he can do in his reliability at any point. If you ramp him up and give him 15 carries, he's going to break apart. And I think that's what the Lions are basically telling us. And this season's done. I mean, you got 10 games left. I don't think they're going to go 5-5. I think they're going to go 2-8. So that's going to be probably a 3-win year, 3 to 4 wins for this season. And it's going to be a very challenging time to see how this regime handles the heat. Real fast, because I think, did we talk about Sheila last week, or did it happen after?
It happened after.
It happened after. What'd you make of it?
I don't know, man. With the way that this is the thing. I feel like I'm so jaded and so scarred by this family and by this organization. I feel like let me put it to you like this. I think her coming out and talking, it's better than what her father did, and it's better than what her mother did.
Good.
But all that being said, I feel like it's just lip service.
Yeah, it's PR service.
I have a really hard time buying anything she says. I feel like she is in so far over her head.
Yeah.
She really doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Right.
This is a woman who really hasn't had a real job in her entire life, and now you're expecting her to basically run like a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
And know what the hell's going on.
She can answer the questions. She just doesn't know what to say to appease the fan base. She used the P word, and not the bad one, but she used the patience word for this fan base. She said patience. I couldn't believe those words left her lips, and they got her out of there real quick. After whose question? Mine. Okay, we're done. I have the video, and I'll always cherish it, because I asked Andrea, I said, Andrea, did I say something wrong? I asked, why do you trust Dan Campbell?
No, it was actually a really good question.
I had to force it in there. I cut off Brad Galley, but I had to get in there because, I had a feeling it might be short, but she answers it, and the guy's like, okay, we're done. And I laughed. I was trying not to laugh outwardly, but I laughed inside, and I said, oh, Jesus, that maybe was a tough question, but you have to ask it. Why do you trust Dan Campbell? So I look at it and I say, she doesn't need to speak. Just give a statement that's written, or talk to. I was saying, to others, just talk to your own people. If you talk to the media, someone like me is going to be out there and trying to get a question that people want to hear, and you're going to end up eventually exposing yourself for, hey, I trust Brad, I trust Dan. They told me it's going to be a 3-year teardown. Okay, Sheila, keep it going. You're going to be 73 years old by the time this team wins. Hopefully, you remember that you still own the team. Good luck. That's the part that's crazy to me is, you're printing so much money. You're 69 years old. You're getting to the point where you're older. She's probably thinking, well, I got till 90, based on my mom. But at some point you would think she would say, boys, Just get some talent. Just give me 2 winning years. I don't care if it's a rebuild. We'll tear it down in 3 years. Just spend all the money. Go into, just do what you got to do. Put a freaking playoff team together, and we'll figure it out later. Patchwork it like every other year. No, what the Lions cuds are doing, they're putting together the sustainable success rebuild that's been permeated here in Detroit, where these guys can cash 4-year checks. Man, these guys are hawks. You think you and I are sharks? Brad Holmes is a shark taking that Ford money. Dan Campbell, ultimate shark, got a 6-year deal out of this and can sell. Yeah, it's going to be a teardown. We're going to put young players. We're going to draft injured players. We're going to have the gall and draft multiple injured players and tell these people to eat it and be patient. Ha! It's crazy. It's crazy at the highest level, and yet there's still a portion of the fan base that will still eat it. It kind of makes you want to swing a helmet, don't you think? Makes you just want to grab a helmet off of someone and just hit someone with it. Oh, well, you're not really supposed to do that, unless you're a certain other kind of group of people, but we'll talk about that here in 2 minutes. To conclude with the Lions, it's frustrating. We're all frustrated. We don't believe in the rebuild. We're not confident. Losses are piling up, and now you've been told, fellas, fans, it's all good. Deal with it. We're going to build a statue for Barry Sanders. Come to Ford Field at the opening of 2023 when we build an 8-foot statue of Barry Sanders. It's a sell job, man. They're trying to spin it, man. They're trying to spin it. But luckily, I know you passionate fan base, the people that listen and pay attention, you're not buying this, and you realize it's about wins. And it's about playing well. It's about making the right choices with the roster that you have. Can't be 1-6. Can't sell to this fan base a rebuild. You just can't. You have to at least be looking like you're making progress, and that has not been shown. You know who's making progress, cuz? Boy, the Wolverines have made themselves really right there at the forefront in the college football playoff, a team that I could actually say and make an argument could go to Columbus and win that football game. They have what it takes to play at a high level. Run the football, play solid defense, don't make mistakes, don't do things that are going to get you beat, and you beat your rival in Michigan State. It kind of sucked because you knew it was going to happen, and unfortunately, the game was decent at first, so I'll get this out of the way. I'll get my 60-second spiel. Michigan State had a chance to win. They had a chance to win that game. They came out and played well. They played at a high level. You get the ball in the red zone, 4th down, and I will never understand. I had Ryan, our boy Ryan Elke, and he has always nice things to say about you, and we shared memories and talked about old times. That play happens, and you can't cheer in the press box, but I started muttering. I said, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe they just ran an extended draw play into the heart of the defense on that play on 4th down. Down 10-7. The game was done. The game was done right then and there. They score that touchdown, Michigan State wins that game. They had Michigan tight. Mel Tucker, coaching at this level, college and pro, was meant to give me a heart attack. Run the damn ball up the middle. QB sneak it. Why are you on 4th down earlier in the game going out of shotgun? Why are you on 4th down running an extended draw play into the heart of a talented defense? Have your quarterback run forward and see what happens. Nope, they don't, and Michigan goes on and pounds the shit out of Michigan State. Like many expected, they wore our ass down. Our offense couldn't keep up, and that was a wrap. But really, the story of the game was the nonsense afterward, because now the whole rivalry is called into question regarding all the nonsense that happened in the tunnel. And my quick opinion on that is simple. I fully condemn everything that Michigan State did, even if the guy skipping to my loo is hurling insults, is doing whatever he's doing, no matter what he's saying or doing. You can never attack another person in a public setting, in a setting of that magnitude, and you just have to control yourself. You got to eat crow. You got to walk off the field. But at the same time, if you ask, how can this be prevented? There are easy measures to prevent this. But at the end of the day, whoever was involved from the Spartans needs to be gone from the program. There should be no excuses. That behavior is unacceptable. It's going to result in a lot of damage to Michigan State. And Michigan is the type of program that has people that will say, lawyer up, Buttercup, and they got a high-powered attorney that's about to draw some cash. And that's what's going to result in this, in that it probably will never happen again at a major university. The Michigan State law, where if you destroy or cause a concussion to somebody else, you're going to face steep penalties, including and up to criminal action. So I'm not giving excuses. Things happen. People are going to do things, but you can't react that way. You besmirched the university. You've now made everybody at the university look silly, and it's just an embarrassment. It's embarrassing to look at. It happens. People lose their cool in football games. I definitely understand why, being a psychologist and understanding the passion of football. That's why they have cool-off periods. There are ways to remedy it, but in a heated rivalry, these things are potentially going to happen. And it's just really bad because we're not talking as much about Mel Tucker's shitty fourth down call as opposed to his players destroying and swinging helmets at a Michigan player, causing a concussion.
Look, and this is the thing. It's one thing to get into a shoving match. It's one thing for that shoving match to escalate to throwing a punch or pushing somebody down. It's another thing where you're essentially using a weapon, and that's what a helmet is in this instance. The helmet was utilized as a weapon. I think this rivalry has gotten so ugly. This used to be fun. I'll be honest with you. I dread us having to talk about it. I hate the game. I do not enjoy watching that football game. I do not enjoy anything about the lead up to that football game. I do not enjoy what comes after that football game. That football game, honestly, at this point, is just vomit-inducing for me. And it used to be something that we built our entire podcast around. It was something that we both took great joy in. It's so ugly right now. It is so nasty. It is so disrespectful. It's unreal. And I'll be honest with you, John. I think a lot of it stems from both coaching staffs.
Yeah, both. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think a lot of it is just petty BS. I think when you've got grown men acting as children, it sets a bad example for the children who then go on to act the way that they do.
And you know what?
It's a mess right now, and it's not good. It's not even fun to watch.
It was fun for me. You know why? Because I know where it originates from. This is coming from online shit talking, okay? And I know some people don't like it. I do it a lot. And sometimes when you do it...
Oh, you don't say.
Oh, you don't say. I do it a lot. I enjoy it. But I also recognize that sometimes the receiving party is not going to like it. And they're going to say some things back at you that potentially could escalate some things. Now, the great thing about me is I'm willing to laugh at myself and say, yes, I said that to piss you off. I mean, this is what I did it for. And then I'll laugh and say, okay, I know I did it. I'm sorry. It's not my intention to be an asshole. I'm a nice guy in person, but I go online and I shit talk and I make fun and I tell jokes and I don't act serious at all. And I say I'm shit talking. But last week was funny in that, in unrelated situation, I shit talked a guest on a podcast who called me childish. He said, "Why'd you say that?" I mean, I said to him online, I said, "Bro, it's shit talking 101. We have rankings and you're below me. So of course I'm going to talk about it. It's shit talking 101. And he laughed and I said, "Okay, besides this childish nonsense, I'm mature enough to understand, okay, I do it. If you don't like it, I'll apologize. But what really is cool is I only do it to the people I like. You, Kenny, Phil, one other person. I don't shit talk everybody. I just shit talk to people that I know potentially will say something back that will potentially make something fun. You know what I mean? But if someone, if you take it too far and you hurt someone's feelings, you say, I'm sorry. It's not what I meant. I'm a good person. But, I get it. Other people that are outside are not going to appreciate coming on someone's podcast and then getting shit talked. I get it. But I'm easygoing and it's never going to escalate. I'll just back down and say, okay, I am just doing it to shit talk. That's what makes rivalries fun, is that I will always say, oh, Michigan sucks, this and that. And then the people come back. And that's what makes it fun was, when the game ended, 3 text messages, fuck Michigan State, fuck you. And it was great. I love it. But the problem is it's done with kids online on Twitter who are not capable of backing down, and it escalates. Like if you said, John, knock it off, you're an egomaniac, shut the fuck up, please stop, I would do it and say, okay, sorry, I'm just doing it. Or I would just, press a little bit and say, well, yeah, of course I'm an egomaniac. But others that are kids in their teenage years will start swinging, will start taking it to the field, they're not going to laugh or have a beer and say, God, you're such an asshole. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an asshole. And then you move on. That's the problem, is that these are kids and they're going online and they're hearing from the Michigan fan base, yeah, state sucks. Tuck coming. Tuck was just having a good time going online and appealing to the kids, just like Jim Harbaugh does. So it's violent and nasty because some of the online nonsense has carried over into what goes on the field. And that's what's going to happen. It can be fun. I don't think the rivalry needs a break. I just think that measures need to take place from the adults to address, even across all college football. I like what soccer does. When the game's done, they go on the field, and the team that wins typically claps if it's a home game. I think it's an easy solution for all teams. Game's over. Only the two coaches are allowed on the field. They shake hands. The losing side goes back to the sideline. The winning team goes back to their sideline. And then the losing team exits the field while the winning team stays on the field, claps if it's a home game to their audience, hugs, talks, does all the media. And you then, after everybody's gone, then you have the home team exit after 3-4 minutes. It's really simple to fix because it is heated. And we have to recognize that this is what's going on. It could get worse. So just put some measures in. I know nobody likes all these extra rules, but I think after the game, the field could be cleared out pretty easily. As simple as the losing team walks off first, the winning team celebrates on the field, on the pitch, as you say, clap a little bit, go shake hands with the fans if it's a home game, and then you walk off. Because, yeah, you can say the tunnel is great and the one tunnel, in a heated football rivalry, this could happen and it could happen again. So it's nasty, it's tough, it's marred. We're talking about it. It does kind of take away from the quality of the game, but these are young kids and they don't have impulse control. They're aggressive, they're online, and they're hearing, Tuck coming. They're hearing, this is a one-sided rivalry, 2-0, ha-ha, back and forth. And then you got all these, they're funny ones, though. You got these Michigan State and Michigan parody accounts that will put Mel Tucker's head on a thief and all those kind of things. You have instigators online. You got the Detroit Sports Podcast kind of, sort of passively making jokes online about Michigan and some of the things that they do. All the glitches that tend to happen at Michigan that kind of just don't get addressed seriously. So it happens. But what should happen is there should be growth from this, and I hope there is. I'm not of the opinion personally that legal action should take place. I think it should be just you lose your scholarship, you're done. But, I'm certain Michigan State will settle. This kid's getting paid. The criminal side, man, it's going to be tough to see because if you open that can of worms, you might not be able to put it back in the chamber.
Yeah, you're right. It's one of those things where this could set a whole new precedence for how these types of situations are handled. It's just, I don't know. I think you're right with how this can get corrected and how this can get fixed. I mean, I look at hockey games, right? And you look at playoff series where you're going up against each other for up to 7 games, and they're usually heated. They're usually very physical. Hockey's still one of the only sports where you're allowed to fight somebody and try to knock somebody's block off. And yet still, when it's all said and done, when one team wins, one team loses the series, they still line up, shake each other's hands. The loser skates off the ice, and the winner goes to center, waves at their crowd. I think similar to what you said, something similar can be done here. And it's weird that now we've had 2 incidences at Michigan in the tunnel, and I don't necessarily understand why this is still going on. You had an issue when Penn State was here. You probably could have fixed it instead of Harbaugh kind of blowing it all off. And it's as simple as just holding your guys back. Just hey guys, we're gonna wait to go down the tunnel. We're gonna wait 5 minutes, let them go, and once they're through, then we can go. That's all you have to do. That's it. It's for some reason. I really feel like you and I are sometimes the smartest people in sports. I don't understand. We're just 2 regular guys who've just kind of been around a little bit. And sometimes it's like we're doing rocket science and brain surgery here, trying to fix all the problems with the sporting world. I just don't get it.
Damn shame. You got to rely on DocNJock to figure out how to handle a heated rivalry. Look, we've been doing this for 10 years. Yeah, we kind of brush up on poking each other in the bear too much, but at the end of the day, it's all love. We have a good time. We want to do it. You don't end up, swinging a helmet at me. You're not going to punch me. You're just going to call me out. Hey, you do this. I don't like it. And that's it. And then we'll say, okay, yeah, I'm doing it just because I want to do it. So that's what it is. And that's what a rivalry should be. Talking's fun if people don't get so emotional about it. The idea, okay, do we have to lay this out? I got a whole minute. I'm going to lay it out. Here's the rule of shit talking. I shit talk Adam. Adam laughs. Shit talks back. I shit talk Adam. He doesn't like it. He says, stop it, or I'm going to put my fist so far up your ass that you're going to bleed for days and die. And I say, I should probably stop. That's how you do it. I don't then go and punch him. I go and say, okay, I got to come up with something better where I can say it where he doesn't get pissed off and tune me out. Now I got to come up with something more creative. Maybe I'll just tag him in something, or maybe I'll reference something that's about him, but not about him, that he thinks it's about something else. So this is the rule of shit talking, is tit for tat, tat for tit. We don't end up punching each other. We end up laughing and saying, God, we end up telling our friends, this asshole said this to me and I wish he would stop. That's the rule of shit talking. And the true shit talking is when one party gives it, the other party gives it back harder, where the other guy goes, damn, fuck, you fucked me. And it's good. That's the blessing, is you really only shit talk those you love. So in the end, in some convoluted way, I'm happy because Michigan respects Michigan State now, because they put all that effort into it and they're trying their best to get back at Michigan State for the 10 losses that they had of 14 games. So even though some people will say that the rivalry is not real, oh, it's real. You guys care and we care. It's getting violent. Big brother's punching little brother and it's doing it on a big stage. But at the end of the day, it's what sports is about. It's a real rivalry and it's real cool. Now, give me your last take, last segment here. Michigan has to do one thing in their remaining games for you to be happy. What is it? What can Michigan accomplish moving forward in this football season after a quality win against the Spartans?
So for Michigan, everything lays in front of them, right? It really does seem like we're going to have another death match between Michigan and Ohio State, this time in Columbus. And that's great. If you're a Michigan fan, that's fantastic. Obviously, you can't look past who you're playing each and every week. But each and every week, this team needs to do some type of red zone install. So when they get to that game, they're not settling for field goals. That was the one thing that I think was so frustrating coming out of this game against Michigan State. They would get into the red zone, and then it was like the entire offense would just shut down. Whether they were leaning too much on the run or JJ just couldn't figure it out, they had to settle for way too many field goals. Those field goals need to be converted into touchdowns, and that is the one thing that will help this team play and win another Big Ten championship and possibly get into the college football playoff. So each week, install something that's going to help your red zone offense and basically remember what you're fighting for.
Fix the damn red zone, hopefully.
That's it.
And Jim Harbaugh said he would. So let's see if they pull out all the stops against Ohio State. No letdown against Rutgers. You need to perform at a high level and continue to do what you do. Great win for Michigan, still undefeated. Michigan State is probably not going to be bowl eligible, and that's just the way it is. It's a bad season. Hopefully they can regroup. Next year it'll be at East Lansing at Spartan Stadium, so it'll be a good time. Maybe consider also just basics. Probably not the best idea to let the kids stew all day and play at 7:30. Just make it a noon game, and let's just get in, get out. Nobody's going to want to throw punches early in the day. Just handle your business. Nobody's that ramped up all day long. You just get it out, get it in, 3:12, 3:30, call it a day. Maybe not a night game. Maybe probably is a good idea to consider another solution to prevent escalating violence in this heated rivalry. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. You can follow Adam on Twitter, get his great takes, heated reactions, all things going on in the world of sports at Adam R. SCROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you agreed or disagreed with any of our takes, if you think the rivalry is really toxic and something that needs a break, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Let us know your thoughts. Appreciate everybody that listens and downloads. Anywhere you can find your favorite broadcast, just type in 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. Doc and Jock everywhere, and always looking at things in the world of Detroit sports and professional wrestling. This was a great broadcast. Went by way too fast. But thanks everybody again for downloading the latest edition of Doc and Jock as we trek towards episode 500. It's going to be a party, and let's see how the Wolverines, Spartans, and Lions handle the next 7 days. Thanks, cuz.